2022 is the first year of FORVIA, and it's also the 30th anniversary for the FORVIA and also HELLER. How time flies. And what's your feelings along the way?
30th anniversary in China.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm very proud of the team. We have a very loyal team here, very effective. Yeah? You have to think about that during the last 3 years we couldn't travel. Yeah? So we fully relied on the team, which had to act with a very high autonomy. And they again showed that not only they were able to deal with this autonomy, but they are doing it with the right accountability, and they delivered fantastic results. So, you know, this is also what the message I passed to our teams. It was a big thank you, because you know, it's not so common to have this level of confidence in a decentralized organization.
What impressed you most? I mean, in the past 2 years, when you cannot come to China?
What for me is very interesting is that China is finding its own style, you know, a Chinese identity, and you can see it on the road. Yeah? When I landed and when we drove from the airport to the hotel, I did not recognize most of the cars I saw on the road. Yeah?
It's new brands?
New brands, new shapes.
New shapes.
Many Chinese vehicles, a lot of green license plates. Yeah? And I think that this was not the case when I was here for the last time in November 2019. Yeah? And then, after having visited the different OEMs at the Shanghai Auto Show, I could realize the progress in craftsmanship, in quality, but also in design, you know, selection of colors, selection of materials, and willingness to propose something which is elegant or something which is more fancy, something which is more related to kids, for example, for younger people. So I saw a real marketing approach, yeah? But with a high level of quality everywhere. But maybe, if you allow me one concern, I think that the progress is undisputable. Yeah? It's absolutely visible.
Yeah.
But the industry has to be careful in China not to mix up speed and rush.
Speed and rush, yes, exactly.
Yeah? It's not the same thing. Speed is positive, it's organized. Rush is, you know, taken with a little bit more risks and unprecision. Yeah? So I think that because of this very tough competition which is existing here with a very high level of different brands, different vehicles, which is maybe a little bit confusing customers, there is a kind of permanent race to generate the right wow effect for the consumers, and the consumers at the end are buying the last best seller. Yeah? So this is dangerous because there's no real loyalty to the brand, and if you are the winner, you take it all. But if you are not the winner, you drop your volumes very significantly. Yeah? And that's, you know, I'm concerned for the industry. Yeah? And I think that maybe it needs to be regulated. This proliferation is costing it's costing too much from my point of view.
Yeah.
So I think that this will have to find its optimum.
You're right. You know, at the beginning of this year, in China market now, there is 132 probably brands here in China, and now more than 45 brands entered the pricing lower pricing.
The pricing war.
Pricing war, yes. So this make consumers become very confused. As you just mentioned, they will wait and buy the best competitive car, but most of the players are lose again. So it's a selection process for most brands, I think.
You know, when I said that this proliferation is costing a lot of money, I also realize that if I'm so much astonished by the progress and the speed of the progress, it's because of that. Yeah. So each new vehicle is a little bit better than the previous one, and as you have a high frequency of renewing the vehicles, the progress is so much visible. But it costs a lot of money. Price war. Now, anything which is related to war is negative, from my point of view.
Yeah.
What are consumers doing when you have a price war? They just wait.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wait and
they wait to make sure that they will not buy a car before the industry has touched bottom. So they will buy when the prices will go up again.
Will they?
I think. So when you do a price war, what is happening? You reduce your margins without adding volumes. So you do not compensate your margin drop by additional volumes. Yeah, and when the prices are going up again, you are not neither benefiting from the volumes because everybody will be on the same scene. So this has to stop. I don't think that this is a positive for the industry, and I think that all the players understand it.
Yes, and it's also a damage for the brands for a long time.
Yeah, and you know, combined to the rush, it will probably accelerate the consolidation.
So that's the situation we're facing now. The competition is so intensified. I guess as a supply is not easy job. When you mention that you are very satisfied with what the China team's performance, I guess it's not easy for them.
No, it's certainly not easy. But maybe one thing also we have to be a little bit careful. Yes, we have a very high proliferation of brands, but not of OEMs. Yeah, because each of the big OEMs today has 4 to 5 and more brands.
Yeah.
So we looked at, if I take the top 20 Chinese OEM brands, you are close to 90% of the Chinese OEM volumes. Yeah. So it's not so big. Yeah. Finally, when you compare the number of brands you have in China, it's not so much more than what you have in Europe. Yeah. But they are much more established in Europe. Yeah, and here, you know, it's this rush which I believe is the issue.
Yeah, I see.
It's the issue, but you know, it's schizophrenic what I'm saying, because it's the issue. It costs a fortune, and in the same time, it's probably the engine of the momentum and of the progress. So.
Yeah, I guess when we have more players in the field, actually for supply it's a good opportunity because you have more chance to develop more potentiality.
Not really, because you have to depreciate your investments on a shorter period of time, yeah, which is increasing the prices and which is increasing the risks.
Yeah, so that's both sides we should consider it. And I guess when we talk about speed of China, it also brings the high demands of the localization, especially in the R&D. How about this situation right now?
It's related to what I said before. We have to be Chinese in China, yeah, because we have to better understand consumers. That's absolutely critical. And so we also need to get adjusted to the market size. It's clear that if I have 17 million vehicles in Europe and I have 25 million and more vehicles in China, I need to adjust my resources accordingly.
Okay. Now we also see that China OEM are very passionate to go abroad, especially to Europe, the other, whatever the market, if they wanted China EV, we will see a lot of brands will enter that market. With that also an opportunity, and how do you view this phenomenon?
The first opportunity I see is on the small urban electric vehicles. Because there is no equivalent offer in Europe. European OEMs do not have an affordable, competitive offer for these type or these entry segments. But they are all conscious about what is happening in China, and they are reacting. So it will not be so easy to achieve and to win significant market share in Europe on the higher segments. So, but it's not impossible. What is fact is that the vehicle segmentation in Europe is the same than in China. So, and from what I've seen this year, what is attractive for a Chinese consumer might also be equally attractive for an European consumer. It's more difficult in the US because the segmentation in the US is very different, with the pickup trucks, and for which the American consumer has very high loyalty.
Yeah, brand loyalty.
Yeah. So I don't think that it will be easy for the Chinese OEMs to acquire market share in America. Probably easier in Europe.
Okay. And we just chat before, you say that Chinese OEM actually they are selling a lifestyle instead of products.
I think that's very clear. First of all, because the buyer is much younger. He is buying a consumer good, and he is buying an part of its lifestyle. And because of that, he is accepting that it will not last very long. Because it's related to the momentum you also have on consumer goods and on evolutions of lifestyle of these people. In Europe, buyers are much older. The second-hand market is very important for the younger buyers. So these mobility assets are really considered as assets. So it's the value which is very important, and not so much the last electronic feature, the last functionality, the last app. It's not at the same level of importance for the consumers.
Besides that, is there any other uniqueness of this of China market from your point of view?
Again, what is very impressive here is the progress. It's difficult for me to find the right words to describe that, but my feeling is that China is finding its style, which is much more sophisticated than it was, much more elegant. And my impression is that between China and Europe, from this point of view, the differences are narrowing. And for vehicles, for example, I'm pretty convinced that the last generation of vehicle produced in China would be attractive for Europeans. This 3 years ago was significantly less the case. Yeah? What is also very interesting is that there is a certain conservatism in Europe when you look at the design of the vehicles, but just because they are more considered as mobility assets. Yeah? It's refreshing to see the differences between the vehicles, yeah? The new designs. It's impressive, yeah? And you do not realize it living here, the level of change you were able to achieve within, finally, a very short period of time. 3 years is usually the development time of one automotive cycle.
Used to.
Used to, yeah. So things are definitively quicker here.
Yeah. So how to keep up with the pace, and what's your advantage, you think, as a group working here?
2023 and soon 25, and after 30 million vehicles, yeah, that's very attractive. And willingness to innovate, yeah, and readiness to innovate. It's much easier, you know, to convince Chinese OEMs to take an innovation here than it is in other regions. I would like to tell you that during 3 years at the auto show, we had 1,600 visitors, and we had 30. We invited, you know, what we call the very VIPs, and we had 30 of them. We had visiting us the CEOs and chairmen of the vast majority of the Chinese OEMs. Yeah? And what I was impressed with is that they came, they listened, they looked at the products, they were interested, they were pertinent in their questions, and they took immediate decisions, yeah? Which is very encouraging for our collaboration in the future.
Yeah, just as you mentioned, because one side they listen to the consumers, because they want to take the share, market share. Another side, they need a partner to deeply cooperation together to co-create some more fancy point or selling point or functions to satisfy the end users.
Yeah, it's very clear that, you know, with the momentum which is existing and with the cash spend which is related to it, that the Chinese OEMs, like any other, are not able to do it by themselves. They need partners. Yeah? And I think that if their target, and it's very clear, is to now export, they need also partners which know the other markets and can support them in this new trend.
Yeah, especially in the smart EV, you need to learn more about the data, the regulation, all kinds of.
Yeah, and I think the Chinese OEMs are very good in understanding the local consumers. Maybe they are a little bit less good to understand the European consumers, and it's where we can help, yeah, and we can provide our knowledge.
Yeah, that's a big advantage of your group as a global company. Yeah. Will you continue investing in China? For example, build the strong cooperation with more OEMs and components to serve the local market?
Yeah, you know, tomorrow I will fly south in Fangshan. We have a new state-of-the-art plant for electronics, which is a very big one. And it's not only a new asset for electronic production, it's also a plant which is respecting the last standards in terms of environment. Yeah? Self-sufficient in energy and so on. Yeah? So that's just an example. But we had discussions during this week with potential partners here in China. And because, as I said, we are convinced that we are stronger together than alone, and there are a lot of people here who are very good in what they do, and especially, you know, having this close relationship and understanding of the local needs.